Hi, and welcome to Social Smarts. I'm Agnes, and I've worked at some of the top tech and social companies in the world. Today, we're looking at TikTok and digging into why the US and some other governments are worried about people using it, and what that means for regular people like you and me. This is a big topic, and it's complex, so we'll divide it into two parts. So get in the headspace, and let's get into it. What's actually happening with TikTok in the United States? In April 2024, President Joe Biden signed the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act, mandating that ByteDance, which is TikTok's parent company, divest its U.S. operations by January 19, 2025, or face a nationwide ban. Basically, that means sell the U.S. operations or be banned. That sounds like a pretty extreme action, but this isn't uncommon. Other countries, including India, have banned the app completely, and there are bans on government employee work devices in countries including the US, Canada, Australia, the UK, New Zealand, France, Norway, the Netherlands, Belgium, Ireland, and more. Let's start with a bit of background. Where is TikTok based? TikTok's owned by a company called ByteDance, which is based in China. Now, this matters because China's government is very different from the governments in the US, North America, Europe, and other places. China has something called a communist system, which you probably heard about. And that means that governments have a lot more control over people and businesses, even private companies like ByteDance. Why does it matter? Different countries have different rules about privacy and sharing information. And the US government believes that some Chinese laws affecting businesses like TikTok could impact the national security of the United States. What does that mean, and why would they think that? All social media companies collect a ton of user data. In China, they have the National Intelligence Law, and it says that companies might have to give the government data if they ask for it. The US government's concerned that TikTok could be told to hand over information about people who use the app, even people here in the US. And that makes the government nervous because, let's face it, no one likes the idea of having their personal stuff be shared without their permission. And this raises fears of potential surveillance on American citizens. Why is surveillance a national security threat? Surveillance is another way of saying spying. All right, imagine this. Let's say someone from a different school or even a different country is watching everything that you do at recess. They're taking notes on where you play, who your friends are, and what games you like. Maybe at first it doesn't seem like a big deal because it's just recess, right? But over time, they could learn all sorts of details about you and use that information in ways that you might not want. For a country, it's kind of similar. When another country can watch a lot of people, like through an app or the internet, they can learn details about how a country works, what its people are doing, and maybe even things about the government. If they know this, then they could potentially use that information to cause trouble, like spreading fake news, trying to change people's opinions, or finding weak points in important systems like military or energy. So just like you wouldn't want someone spying on you at recess, the US doesn't want another country to watch its people too closely because that information could be used in ways that might harm the country or make people unsafe. And this applies to any other country. So is this all about potential surveillance? It's a bit more complex, actually. Let's peel another layer of this onion. When companies in China get big enough, especially if they're important to the country, they're often asked to set up something called a Chinese Communist Party, CCP committee, inside their offices. Why would they do that? The CCP wants to make sure that the companies are following the rules of China and are helping the country grow in the way the government wants. There's also a rule called Article 19 of China's company law, and that says that any company with 3 or more CCP members working there has to set up a kind of a committee. So it's actually part of the law. But what does this committee do? For one thing, it makes sure that the company is working on projects that help the country and follow Chinese rules. For example, let's say the company is building a new app, maybe one that collects personal data like photos or messages. The CCP committee might remind them to keep that data safe and in line with Chinese laws on privacy and security. Another big job for the CCP committee is to support the employees and encourage them to stay positive and keep the workplace fair. This might sound a bit unusual compared to other countries, but it's how China keeps businesses connected to its bigger goals and vision for the whole country. It's kind of like having a hall monitor in school, making sure that everyone's following the rules and working together as a team. But this isn't just for Chinese companies. Any big international company that has an office or presence in China with Chinese citizens working there could have the same CCP committee in their office. Imagine if you had a member of a political party in the office of every big company in the US, like Apple or Google. It would feel a bit like the government was keeping a close watch on what these companies do, right? And that's a concern that the US government has. This close connection to the CCP is viewed as problematic for the US and other governments outside of China because it raises questions about what kind of control or influence the Chinese government might have over a company's operations and how that impacts people using the app in the US. That said, TikTok has said that American user data is stored in the US and has not been shared and would not be shared with the CCP. If a government official is present at every big company in China, why isn't the US government concerned about other companies like Nike, Apple, Microsoft, or Intel? One of the biggest concerns is about data. All social media companies, including Snap, Insta, Pinterest, X, Facebook, and yes, TikTok, collect a lot of data about you and how you use their app, including things like your location, the type of device you're using, what videos you watch, your friends, your DMs, your comments, your searches, and more. And while this is normal for social media companies to collect data, because that's how they show us relevant content or to send you targeted ads, because that's how they make money, TikTok's connection to China has some people worried that this data could be used in ways that we might not expect. There's also aggregated data that can paint a picture about a community, region, or population. Governments outside of China are concerned about what could happen if all this user data was shared with the Chinese government. It's pretty common for government agencies to limit what apps their employees can have on their work phones, especially apps that collect a lot of data. This includes things like social media apps, dating apps, and even some food delivery apps. These apps collect sensitive information like location data, contacts, usage patterns that can create potential security risks. If an app is tracking where someone is and when they're there, that data can be used to make educated guesses about their movements and activities. Now imagine someone working in a high security area like defense or intelligence who's using a social media or dating app that shares their location. Even if they're just checking in or scrolling or have background app refresh happening, their location data could give away sensitive information about where they're stationed, when they're on duty, or even what kinds of operations might be happening in the area. And this kind of data, especially when collected over time, or you have a lot of people that you can collect this information from, can paint a detailed picture, not only of what that person is doing, but potentially the activities of the entire organization that they work for. And this is why government agencies are so careful about what apps are allowed on their employees' phones. They want to make sure that seemingly innocent data can't be used to track, triangulate, or leak any valuable information. And by controlling app usage, they can reduce the risk that foreign governments or bad actors could piece together clues about government activities, locations, and patterns. And in the world of intelligence and security, every detail matters. The data that might seem unimportant to us can become very valuable in the wrong hands. The US government may be thinking about the potential of surveillance, even if there is no evidence of it occurring. Remember, there is a long history and a lot of distrust between the US and communist countries. But it's not all about data, though, and we'll get into that in next week's episode. We went over a lot of stuff today. So what's the big takeaway? TikTok, like any social media platform, is a tool. It can be a fun place to connect, create, and explore, but it's important to understand that it's also a business, and it collects a lot of data about you. Companies aren't good or bad. They exist to make money, and all companies need to operate under the laws of wherever they operate. This controversy isn't about the app. It's about global politics. You know how you have friends that you love to spend time with. And then there are people that you don't get along with or have nothing in common with. It's no different with governments. Because of the connection to China and the way the Chinese government operates, the US and other governments believe there are unique concerns about how TikTok might be used. That's a lot to unpack. And this is why we're talking about this stuff, so you have the knowledge and tools to make good decisions. I hope you learned something. Until next time, you got this. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.